Thanks for visiting carverbanjos.com. This is the assembly instruction for the latest do-it-yourself banjo kits using the 10-inch and the 12-inch bent rims. My name is Brian and I'm going to walk you through the entire assembly process. We're going to troubleshoot any issues you might run into. We're going to tune a banjo up and play it, and we'll go over all the options available for these new kits. You'll hear background music throughout the video, and I am playing these banjos in that music, so you'll know what they sound like throughout the video. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. Go to carverbanjos.com. You'll see the 10-inch and the 12-inch kits. Click on one of those, and if you go to the gallery, you can scroll through the pictures and you'll see the different types of necks. They're all labeled there. Scroll on down. There's a drop-down menu where you select the neck type that you want, and then you need to select if you want frets or fretless, and then you can add it to the shopping cart. Your kit will come in 3 main pieces. You've got the neck, the dowel, and the rim. The very first step and the most important step is to get the dowel glued to the neck and make sure it's all lined up perfectly. You're gonna do all of this before you sand or varnish anything or tack the skin on. Once we get the dowel glued up to the neck and once it's dried, we can move on to the rest of the assembly. The dowel, it will fit on the rim pretty easily, and I've tapered the end of this a little bit to accept the neck, and I want to say it's a pretty tight fit, just dry. So push it in, pop everything together, and right now we have a little gap, so we'll pull it back out a little bit. Okay. Now at this point, we'll put the black screw in, right here. And then we're gonna pull the neck back off. Now we're gonna apply wood glue all around like this top inch and spread it out, and then push the neck down and put in your brass set screw right here. Now let that dry for several hours before taking everything apart. Well, I think the glue has dried with the dowel and the neck. Let's take it all back apart. The dowel is now connected to the neck, and now we're gonna go ahead and sand the neck and sand the rim. It's pretty smooth on the outside. It's a little bit rough on the inside. I've got some 320 grit sandpaper. I'm just gonna go over it. I'm gonna sand the whole inside, and then the top and bottom lip are a little bit rough. Clean those up. Next step, we're gonna go over this top edge with tape. I don't want to varnish this top lip. You don't have to tape it off, but it just makes it a little bit easier. I'm taping about 1/8 of an inch below this pencil line. And the reason we don't want to get varnish on this top lip is because we're going to be applying glue all along here, and glue does not stick to varnish very well. Alright, I'm just going to fold it over. And for the final step, we're just going to cut this extra tape off. Okay, now we're ready for varnish. My favorite type of varnish is True Oil. It's a gunstock finish. You can buy small bottles in the sporting goods sections of Walmart and spread it on. Two coats of oil went on this rim. I let it dry overnight. Now we can take the tape off. This is the goat skin that comes with your kit. I'm gonna put this skin just in an old plastic tub and fill it up with cool water. Never use hot water or boiling water, that will ruin your skin. It'll crinkle in on itself, so it'll be fully submerged. And we're gonna let that soak for about 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes. While we're letting that soak, we're gonna sand the neck, get it ready to go. I do have a little time saver trick with sanding these necks, and it's using a card scraper. I think they're also called cabinet scrapers. If you use this, you can pretty much get away with not sanding at all. I like that because sanding's really dusty and time consuming, and you have to go through several different grits of sandpaper. This has been like the best sanding hack I've found, and it's also great for the contours and for the end grain. So I'll show you real quick. You just kind of go the direction of the grain. If you don't want to use a card scraper, just sand the entire thing with 220 grit sandpaper, and then go over it again with 320 grit sandpaper, and you'll have pretty much the same result. If you have a fretted neck, I've already sanded the fretboard before installing the frets, so you don't have to do that. The neck is all sanded. Let's do 2 coats of True Oil. I'm going to put a thin coat on, then I'm going to let it dry for a few hours, and then I'll come back and do another coat. I'm not going to put any oil on the dowel right now. If you'll recall, it was a pretty tight fit to get it through the hole in the rim, so I'm going to leave it alone for now, and I'll go back and varnish it when it's all put back together as a last step. Be careful not to get oil in the peg holes or the nut slot. Just do a thin coat. I soaked this skin in cool water and soak it at least half an hour. I just took it out. I didn't dry it off. I just let it drip until it's no longer dripping. And I'm gonna leave it like that. This is really important. Use waterproof wood glue. I'm using Type Bond 3. Put it along the top lip of your rim. Spread it around. And then we're going to put glue along this surface as well, just a little bit. Don't need a lot. I'm going to lay it down and just try to center it up. When I slid the skin like this, I pulled the skin, you can see some glue got transferred along the inside and here on the skin. It doesn't matter, it's not a big deal. I'm just gonna take note of that and wipe it down when I've got everything tacked up. So the tacks are already marked where to put them. A light pencil marking, so if you sanded or varnished your rim, you want to be careful not to lose those markings. Got our tacks, and I've got a small hammer. I wrapped a piece of leather on it. It's just to protect the face of the tack. You don't have to do that. I just don't want to scratch the coating off of the tacks. Alright, pick any spot, find your marking, put the first tack in. The wood is soft enough that you can definitely get the tack started. I like to use the hammer to drive it in. We'll go opposite that first tack and pull the skin just a little bit. You're not trying to make it super tight or anything right now. Start the tack, pound it in, and then we'll half the tack. Find the marking. And the fourth tack, opposite that one, I'm pulling a little bit. You can already see we're getting a little bit of tension on the skin, not a whole lot of tension. Checking for the marking. Pop it in. Alright, so those first four tacks are the most important and the most difficult to get right. Once you have those four, it should look like this. It shouldn't have like a bunch of wrinkles. You can see like once I get a tack here, it's gonna pull that wrinkle out. Tack here will pull out the next wrinkle. So after like 8 tacks, it's pretty much gonna be wrinkle free. That's how you know you're at least moving in the right direction with the tension. Now each tack, every time I do 4, think of it in 4s. So we've got our first 4, now I'm going to split them in half and do the next 4. And now I'm pinching the skin right here and resting my hand on the rim and pulling a little bit. Probably like 3 or 4 pounds of force. Pulling on the skin and popping the tack in just like that. Always checking for that marking and getting it in there. Once you've got 8 tacks on, I pretty much, I don't really track if I'm splitting the difference exactly in quadrants. I just kind of go around and fill in the tacks. I'll leave a space out maybe. So, all right. Once we've got the first 8 tacks in place, the skin is gonna be pretty much flat, no wrinkles. I've got a little wrinkle here, so I know I need to focus on this area and get some more tension on the skin over here. And I'm always watching to see like what areas could use more tension. All the tacks are in. There is kind of a gap where the dowel will go through. Not really a place for a tack. I'm going to temporarily put a tack in a place that will be hidden. Just want to get some tension on the skin right here. I'm not even gonna set the tack all the way. I'm gonna pull this tack out later after the skin is dried. Now, in your kit, you have these zip ties. Put a few of them together. Pull them nice and tight, and a little bit below the line of tacks, maybe ½ an inch or so. So I'm just going to go through and pull the wrinkles straight. Alright, now if you used a lot of glue, you might want to go back with a rag and wipe the glue off the rim if any ran down there. And you can kind of see some glue on the skin here. So I'm going to take a damp rag and get rid of that. Okay, now set this aside, let it dry overnight. You might be tempted to trim up the skin right now. Just leave it until it dries. You'll be glad you did. The skin has dried overnight. Tightened up. I'm gonna go around just above the zip ties now with the razor blade and cut this extra skin off. Okay. I use the zip ties as kind of a guide. We're gonna 2 coats of oil on the neck. Just did a kind of a quick job with it. Slide it on. Okay. Let's find the brass screw. Goes right up here. Make sure everything's straight and flush. Try to show you what I'm doing. Okay, that's nice and snug. And the black screw goes on this end. Alright, so that's put together. Okay, we're ready to string up our banjo. This is a little bit complicated to explain, but it's pretty simple in reality. I'm sending these kits out with sets of 7 strings. So you've got this bundle of 6. And this is a classical nylon guitar string set. And then we've got an extra string. So there's lots of different ways you can tune these banjos. But to make it as simple as I can, I'll say your first option is standard banjo tuning, like open G. Now, I will amend that G and say it's better to tune it 2 steps lower, like to open E, or 1 step lower, like open F. I just find that these strings tend to always settle a little bit lower than G. Even when I tune it up to G, it ends up settling down to like an E, and that's where it like stays in tune, that's where it's happy, and that's where it sounds the best. So if you're going to do a higher tuning, do open E. And to do that, I will show you what strings to use. So this extra loose string, this is your 5th string. This is your thumb string, okay? And then out of this set, it's a set of 6, so you'll have to discard 2 strings. We'll look at the wound strings. There's 3 wound strings. And we want to get rid of the 2 thickest wound strings. So I just kind of look at them. 2 of them are like really close in thickness, and if I'm not sure, if I can't tell exactly which is which, I just kind of bend them, and this one feels a lot lighter, that one feels heavier, and this is the heaviest. So we're going to get rid of these 2 heavier strings, and this is now your 4th banjo string. And then in the set you can see the clear nylon strings. It's pretty easy to tell which is which. Your third string is the thick one here, and then the next thickest is the second string, and then your thinnest string is your first string. Okay. Now that's if you want to do the higher tuning options, anywhere from an E to an F to a G, though I do recommend just shoot for around an E, because that's where it will work the best with these strings. Now, this is the 12-inch model, and I want to tune it to cello tuning, and with this string set provided, we can do cello tuning. Cello tuning just means it's low tuning, and we're going to end up tuning it about an octave below standard banjo tuning. So to pick these strings, this loose string you're not going to use, and then we're just going to use all of the thickest strings for this set. So the low thick wound string, that's going to be your low fourth string, and then the third string, the second string. The thickest clear string is going to be your first, and then the next thickest clear string is going to be your fifth. So I'm going to get those ready, and I'll show you how to tie them onto the leather tailpiece. Alright, I have the fifth string. You need to use a no slip knot. I use like a slip knot. If you fish or something, you probably know of some better knots than I do. Just the most important thing is to tie a really secure knot on the tailpiece. I think most of the time, if you're having trouble keeping the instrument in tune, it's because the strings are slipping at your knot. That's almost always the issue going on here. So we'll get ready to tie it, and before I do tie it, I'm going to just hold it up on the banjo and make sure I have enough length. This one's the fifth string, so I will have enough length to make it to that fifth string. This one's the easiest one. So I'm just gonna wrap it around 3 times and then put the end through the eye that we've created and pull everything tight. Oops, slipped out there. So that's what it looks like pulled tight. And with a little bit of extra, I'm just going to tie a simple knot. I'm going to pull the knot tight with some pliers here. It will pull tight on its own in time, but it saves a little bit of time with the tuning. Okay, now the next string, we're going to use the thickest wound string, and that's because we are doing the low octave tuning on this banjo. Strings are all tied on. I tucked the extra ends under the knots here just to kind of clean everything up. I don't like to leave the ends dangling because sometimes when you're playing, if you have those pieces dangling and hitting the drum head, they'll vibrate and it's just kind of annoying. So try to clean it up, get everything out of the way. Now we're ready to attach the tailpiece to the drum. Alright, now it's time to work on the nut. The nut is 3D printed plastic and you might need to widen the slots, especially if you're going to go with the low tuning. I'm going to have to open them up a little bit. Just use a piece of your sandpaper, 320 grit, fold it in half. And use it like a file to open the slot a little bit. And I'll show you here in a second, once I've got all these opened, that the strings all fit. If you have a fretless neck, you'll want to be really careful that you don't lower the depth of the slots, because if you go too low, the string will start buzzing on the fingerboard. You won't really have that problem with the fretted neck because there's a 0 fret which sets the height of the string. So just double check all the strings do fit. Now I'm going to use a spot of wood glue on the bottom, just like that. And I'm going to pop this into the slot on the neck. Okay. It's a pretty tight fit, so I'm not going to clamp it. Sometimes it's not as tight of a fit, so you will want to clamp it. I cut this slot by hand and it's not always perfect, but so we'll let it dry and then we'll put the strings on the pegs. Pegs are tapered, so as you push them farther into the hole, they get tighter in the hole. So when you're tuning, if you have to turn a lot, kind of pull the peg out and turn it, and then press it in as you get closer to where you need to be, and that will set it. If there is varnish in your peg holes, the pegs aren't going to fit as well. They're probably not going to hold tuning as well. So use a little bit of sandpaper, like curl up some sandpaper and get in that hole and clean it out if you have any varnish in there. So the 5th string, and also note this fretted neck, there's a little channel right here. That's a string guide, and on the fretless neck you also have this little channel. You also have a brass screw for the string to rest on, and in this case the string is just going to end up resting on the fret. So I leave a good amount of string like loose, and then the first thing I want to do is crisscross the string over itself. Like that. And once I've done that, guide the string kind of closer to the neck where it needs to be. Put it in that little groove. And this 5th peg is a little bit tricky because the string will want to feed towards the neck, and if you get it to where it's touching the neck, it'll kind of prevent you from turning the peg easily. It'll kind of bind up. So just try to keep it a little bit away from the neck, but close enough. So that one's on. First I'm going to wrap it around the top of the peg, like top half, like this. And then I'm going to guide it below. That kind of locks it on. Just kind of over and under, and that kind of locks the string onto itself. And as I turn the peg, I push down on the string to get it close to the peg head. This way we get a nice downward tension at the nut, so the string isn't going to pop out while you're playing. And if it is popping out or if it's buzzing, it's probably you need to get more tension downward on the strings. So just wind them down, and I always kind of guide them every time I'm tuning my banjo. I'm just kind of guiding them down. It's time to place the bridge. The scale length on these particular kits is 24 13/16 of an inch. So for the fretted models, you'll measure from the edge of fret 0. That's the first fret right there next to the nut. And measure out 24 13/16 of an inch. And for the fretless models, you'll measure from the edge of the plastic nut your distance. Before I put this bridge into place, let's talk about these bridges. Your kit will come with 2 different bridges, a tall and a short. I believe they're 5/8 and 1/2 inch. These bridges are 3D printed. They're plastic. I've designed them. I've gone through a lot of different versions of these, and these sound, to me, they sound nice and bright, and they sound almost identical to a standard wooden bridge, if you can believe that. Now, the main reason I'm using 3D printed bridges is because I can really cheaply provide bridges bridges are getting to be more and more expensive every day, and it just helps keep my costs down for the kit, and it opens up some possibilities. I can design different types of bridges. I plan to offer other bridge styles in the future, but right now your kit has these two bridges to choose from. I say usually start with the tall bridge, and just like with the nut, you might need to open up the string slots just a little bit to accommodate your strings. Just be careful not to go too deep. The way they're printed, the slots are a little bit shallow, and if you don't cut into the slot a little bit, your string might jump out of it. So get your 320 grit sandpaper, fold it in half, nice good edge, and use that like a file to get in there and open up the slot. Also, you could use a small file if you have one. I've got one right here I like to use. Just it's got a nice thin edge on it, so that's what I use. Okay, we'll take the tall bridge, place it at 24 and 13/16. String action. Once you have your banjo tuned up, let's tune it real quick. This is the low octave or cello tuning, which I just decided to do for this example. And like I've said before, you can choose low tuning or more standard tuning. I kind of just pick a random note for the lowest string, and if I had to guess, it would probably be close to an octave below G. It's probably an A. And I'm just tuning to an open chord like you would tune banjo normally. So all of the songs you know, all of the chords you know, they all translate down, so you don't have to relearn anything, you're just playing lower. Action is the height the string sits above the fretboard, and we have the taller bridge in place, so the string action it's a little tall, it's a little high. I actually like it this way because the tension of the skin can fluctuate with humidity, and having a tall bridge, it kind of compensates for all that, so I don't really have to worry about it. If you want, you can lower the string action by popping in the shorter bridge. That's why I'm including two bridges, so you can experiment with your string action and just dial it in the way you want it. There is one more way to adjust string action. It's a bit more advanced. I have kind of set the angle the neck meets the rim when I set up your kit before I send it out. And you might need to adjust this if the different bridges isn't giving you the string action that you want. So if you angle the neck downward at a sharper angle like this, that will bring the strings closer to the fretboard. Or if you need to get the strings up off the fretboard, you can change the neck angle and bring it more parallel to the rim. And the way to do this, you'll have to remove your strings, or loosen your strings, and remove this tailpiece, and then you'll have to reset the black screw into the dowel either a notch higher or a notch lower, and that's what's going to change your string action. Let me play a song for you now you've already been hearing this particular banjo as the background music throughout this video. This is the 12-inch rim, and it's tuned to octave tuning. So since you've already heard this one, let me play a 10-inch for you. This is tuned higher to standard tuning. It's probably like around an E, open E. And I've stepped up the second string to sawmill tuning. Don't worry about it if you don't understand all of the terms. This is the 10-inch with the standard tuning string set, and the neck is a fretted old-time neck. I will play the cuckoo. Alright, so that is the whole process for putting one of these together. Everything I can think of. I know the video is pretty long. If you have further questions, the best way to reach me, I would say now, is through my forum at carverbanjos.com. It's free to join. You don't have to even own one of my instruments. If you're just a banjo enthusiast, you can go over there and talk banjos. And if you own one of these banjos, you need help, you can post a question there. I'm there to answer you, and my other customers are there to help. They have experience of their own, and it's cool to get their perspective on how they did it. So if you need help, or if you want to offer up some help, go to the forum at carverbanjos.com. Check out the other do-it-yourself banjo kits available. There are lots and lots of different combinations with all of these new neck options, and I hope to just keep adding more and more options to the site as time goes on. So enjoy your banjo and have a great day.